You batted .313 over 4 years at Yale. Did you have the desire to go pro at one point in your life?
Of course I did, yeah. But the reality is you start off, take these kids in Little League, and it's like the ones that can make it to Division I, that's like the top 1%, right, to get to college. It's the top 0.01% that could actually make it to the big leagues. I mean, it's just a very arduous thing. That's part of the reason why, I went to Yale, because I was like planning beyond baseball. I wanted to do it. I would have done it if I could have, 100%. I was a good high school, good college player. I could have toiled in the minor leagues, but in terms of being an everyday big leaguer, that just wasn't going to happen. And so it's interesting. The guy that succeeded me as captain of the Yale baseball team is a guy named Craig Breslow. He's a friend of mine. And he was a left-handed pitcher. And he pitched about 10, 12 years in the big leagues. He's now the general manager of the Boston Red Sox. When I first got elected to Congress, they're like, you got to play on the congressional baseball team. Well, these reporters knew I was friends with Craig, who was, I think, on the Red Sox at the time. And they're just asking me like, well, why didn't you want to play in big leagues like Craig? I'm like, do you think if I was good enough in the big leagues, I'd be in the frickin' U.S. Congress, for Pete's sake? This guy's pitching 2 innings a week. He's making $5 million a year. And I know it's not easy, but that's a pretty good thing. But I did think, kind of as I got out of college and was doing the law school thing, I was interested in doing baseball in kind of a professional executive type of situation.
Oh, you were?
I was, yeah. So that was part of the reason I did law school to begin with. And then I think what happened was 9/11 happened, and that caused me to want to join, the U.S. Navy. But it's always been a passion of mine.
You remember facing Rick Ankiel back
Yeah,
in the day?
he was probably the best high school player in the history of Florida. And he had never lost the game, I don't think. We beat him in the playoffs. But what I remember more about that game was not him pitching. We were up 4 or 5 runs, and he comes to the plate, and he hits probably the farthest ball I've ever seen in person. And so our home field was Dunedin Stadium, which is the Blue Jays spring training stadium. So this is a major league ballpark, and he did it. So then when he got to St. Louis, and he was lighting it up at first on the mound, then he had the yips, and then his career kind of got derailed. Then you hear news, oh, he's going to come back as an outfielder. And a lot of people were snickering at that. This guy was a pitcher. He's not going to be an outfielder. I was like, I don't know. I've seen that guy hit. I was like, he could do it. And then he ended up being a very productive, everyday big leaguer there. And so, yeah, I think in terms of, if you look at his career, and we have A-Rod, we have a lot of good ones, I think he's probably the best.
You grew up in Tampa from, I think, the time you were 6 through the high school. What was that period of your life like?
Well, it's interesting because I look back now, I was really fortunate to be, so Dunedin is just north of Clearwater, it's west of Tampa, and it is the spring training home of the Toronto Blue Jays. And so all those facilities, including the stadium, were owned by the city. So as I was growing up, those are the facilities we used. My high school home field was a major league spring training park. We would go after school when spring training was going on, wait in the stands for the game to end, and then we'd go out and have our practice from like 4 to 6 or whatever. And so I played 4 years in college and never played on a field better than my high school home field. And I don't think there's anyone that could say that. Not very many people could say that. So you had an ability to play. If you liked baseball and you liked sports, you could play year round. I went to the Dunedin High School there, which is why we got to use the facilities and everything like that. We went to the Little League World Series when I was 12. We liked other sports, like my friends and I, but I would say baseball was #1 by a country mile.
Where do you think the genesis of your work ethic started?
I think sports has a lot to do with it. I believe baseball is a game where if you do put in time on honing these skills, I do think it pays off. But I always just believed, okay, I want to do very well. Sports is my passion. I was not passionate about academics, but I just felt like I got to do well in school. Like if I have an ability to get an A, I owe it to myself, my parents, everyone, to get the A. So I worked hard.
And you were conscious of that?
I was conscious of that. I was like, I don't want to leave anything on the field in terms of baseball. I want to know that I did as much as I could, but also in terms of academic, I want to do it. I want to put myself in a position to succeed. And so being able to do both of those things simultaneously, really helps you. Then when I get to college, I'm in much tougher academic environment. I'm working all these different jobs to kind of get through. And then, of course, playing baseball, which is kind of a year-round thing because you're training in the fall and then you have your season in the spring. And that was something that you learn to balance, and I graduated Magna Cum Laude from Yale University, which is not easy to do. So then I get to Harvard Law School, and the lore was, look to your left, look to your right. Many of you aren't going to be here after your first year. It's such a meat grinder. It's so hard, all this other stuff. So I get there my first year of law school. I never had so much time on my hands because I'm going to class, I'm reading the assignments, I'm not playing baseball anymore, I'm not working a job anymore. So after the first semester, I'm like, I got to go get a job. I need to make some money. I need to do all that stuff. But the reason why that was easy for me was because of working, learning how to balance athletics and academics.